Hey, it's Shana Meyerson with YOGAthletica in Los Angeles, California, here today to show you the Ustrasana alignment that you didn't know you didn't know. So, based on another one of my very unscientific surveys wherein all of the data was collected by my eyeballs, it seems that about 99% of all the people on the face of the planet are neglecting this one alignment. Prepare to be amazed. It really is going to change your pose tremendously. So, in order to do this pose, you are going to need a block. I know, that was like pure yoga magic. You didn't see that coming at all, did you? I know, a magician never gives away her tricks, but you know. Anyway, if you have to choose between like a thin block or a fat block, choose the fat block, okay? So, not choose the fat like she chews the fat with me, because we don't chew the fat during yoga, but choose the fat. We're going to come back to this. Just have it ready. Gone. Okay. Before we start, I just want to review the basic alignments of this posture. I'm really today only going to drill down on one alignment, but first, let's review the basics. Knees, hips width apart. That should be pretty obvious. Feet, hips width apart, right? So my legs are parallel on the floor. My hips remain more or less over my knees. So, very tight people tend to lean back like something like this, or even like this, not the pose. People who are very open think that they're going deeper into the pose by doing something like this. That's not the pose. And when we drill down on the big alignment, that's going to make a lot more sense to you. So this is very much a Goldilocks pose where the hips stay over the knees, and in order to get back, it's just sort of an up and over action. And I try to keep my hips in place as I take the pose. My neck can be long, or I can throw it back in this pose. We don't usually throw our heads back in yoga poses, but on this one, you can. If you're tighter, or if your feet are like sort of crampy in the arch, it happens. Tuck your toes like this. It will make it far, far easier to find your feet. Sometimes leaning back, quite honestly, might just be scary. So tucking your toes makes a big difference. Also, just to protect your low back, and particularly your quadratus lumborum, you don't really want to enter one side and then the other side, but rather enter two at the same time. That applies regardless of your foot positioning. Okay, so we come in, we come out, both legs simultaneously. Now, get your handy dandy block out. What are we going to do with this wonderful block? We take it between our legs and we shove it way up there, like way up there. And put it in such a place where you can see the block past your legs. Now, the alignment that so many people get incorrect in this pose is that your femurs, your thigh bones, are meant to be at least energetically, if not actually physically, internally rotated. Now, if that doesn't make sense to you, let me demonstrate with the block. Externally rotated thighs are going to puff my groin forward, and it's going to make the block shoot forward. So watch. You see that? You see how the block shoots out in front of me? Now, the terminology I usually like to use for this block is not family friendly. So instead, we're going to use a terminology that my student Judy came up with, Pez dispenser. That's a good one. So here's the Pez Do not dispense. I'll explain how in a moment, but when I'm internally rotating, instead of thrusting the block back forwards, I'm going to try to pull it backwards, or at least maintain it in this spot. So when I'm standing, that's very easy. All I have to do is move from my pelvis. When I go backwards, it's much, much harder. So first I'll demonstrate, and then I'll explain. As I go back, notice that the block does not go forward. Here's external rotation. That's what everybody is doing. And here's internal, where I'm basically trying to suck the block out behind me. I'll tell you the truth. This can be a crazy making action. How do I do it? First of all, you do have to understand internal versus external, okay? When my thighs go internal, it's like I'm rotating to midline. When my thighs go external, it's rolling them out. Now, besides the fact that it's extra sexy to do like this, what you think is happening in your low back when you externally rotate? Well, if this is going broad in front, what's happening in back is it's narrowing, meaning you're pinching into your low back. Now, it may make for a more insta pretty one because you could do that big hip thrust. Remember I was talking about this, which I see on Instagram constantly? It seems like so deep and so wonderful and so much better than just hips over knees, but it's not the pose because you're neglecting the primary alignment. So when I use the block, it moderates the pose. And remember that when I'm working, here, let's give you a little in front. When I'm working with back bends, the goal isn't to look the prettiest in a photo. The goal, I hope, is to be the safest on my back. And the way I do that is maintaining breadth in my low back and length in my tailbone. So if you can imagine your tailbone pushing down, your thighs rolling in, but as soon as I lean back, they're going to want to thrust again. So what I do is, instead of moving from my thighs, I move from my thoracic. You guys know that all back bends are meant to focus on your thoracic, the tightest part of your back. We have a tendency to dump into our low back, into our lumbar, because it's bendier. It looks better, but it ain't safer, folks. So as I pull in, I lift from my heart. And I use that lifting action to allow me to squeeze the thighs into the place where I need them. You might want to try this with your toes tucked at first. But again, no block thrusting, we're sucking it back. So I lift up as I roll my thighs in. Try not to spread your feet out to accommodate that. That's not what I'm talking about either. The isolation of the thigh muscles is not an easy one, for sure. Pull in and come up. Now, I find that it's a little bit easier to maintain this internal rotation. I have such microphone and sound issues. Every day a new one. Where is my microphone? Oh, there it is. Hello, hello, hello. Testing, testing. Okay, I find that it's easier to maintain the internal rotation in Ustrasana if I enter from Virasana. Why? Because Virasana is already an energetically internally rotated pose. Now, why do I say energetically instead of actually? Because more or less, this is still a neutral pose. but the thighs are certainly on the internal. So if I take my hands on my heels, and if you're more bendy, you could put them closer to your toes, your fingers, or if you're less bendy, up by your heels. Take the knees so they're hips width, because remember that's where we have to finish, and make sure your feet are super huggy. And then as I lean my chest back, the key to maintaining this internal is moving from my thoracic instead of from my thighs. So I lift up my chest, roll my shoulders back, and my movement will be chest up to come up. So I lift my chest, and at the same time, think about my hips going to where the wall meets the ceiling. But focus, focus, focus on hugging in from the thighs and pressing up like crazy in my upper thoracic. What you're going to feel if you can accomplish this action, and this is not an easy one, is that the Ustrasana energy is going to move all into your upper back where it belongs. It's going to take it completely out of your low back. It's a pretty good pose. And this alignment is a game changer. It does take a little while to figure out, so don't give up on it if it doesn't make sense in your body at first. It will. You know it will. Because I'm Shana Meyerson, and I never lied to you. Hey, don't forget to sign up for my Vimeo channel. Yeah, don't say you don't know where to find it. The information is in the video right below here. They're full-length classes, as long or as short as you want them, as intense or not intense as you want them, as advanced or beginner as you want them, and there's new ones added every month. It's going to change your practice forever if you do. And forever is a mighty long time. You know what's not a mighty long time? A day, like today. I hope you have a good one. This is Shana Meyerson with YOGAthletica in Los Angeles, California, wishing you a namaste kind of a day.